Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the B1 podcast with Matt and Tommy. Yes, Belgian Grand Prix edition. The edition of the rain delays and then the racing, if we can call it that. We got some things to talk about, Tommy, today, for sure.
We do.
And I know where to begin. I know where we're going to begin. But first and foremost, how are you feeling after that, sir?
I'm feeling, disappointed with the race for sure. Many reasons. I kind of felt like at least when the race was started, it might be good, but unfortunately then other problems persisted. So, it's always disappointing when you get to Spa, say so many times about what a great track it is on paper and through history and things like that, but unfortunately it's just not delivering, is it?
It certainly is not, but who is delivering are the P1 patrons. Big shout out to you lot.
Wow, that was beautiful.
You always deliver, who will be getting extra chat at the end of this race review and every single race review this season, as well as lots of other perks. So go and join our Patreon, which is patreon.com/MattP1Tommy. We'd love to have you there and to enjoy the extra premium waffle that we have at the end of this one. So, let's do it. Let's dive in, head first. My most memorable moment. And I say this with... There's a bit of jest, I suppose. The McLaren battle, or lack of, for 43 of the 44 laps, but it was still a battle. There was still intrigue. Maybe not as much intrigue as perhaps the commentary was suggesting that there might be towards the end of that one. But of course, Piastri versus Norris. We had somewhat of a side-by-side / change of positions at the start. Once we finally got underway, don't worry, we'll talk about the rain delay with Tommy's
we'll
most
rant
memorable
about
moment,
that.
I think. Yeah, there will be rants coming. But let's start with the actual bit of action that was interesting. And it was, of course, Lando Norris off a pole position, but not really off a pole position, was in first because we didn't even get a starting. No, Matt, don't kick off. No, we're not talking about the rain delay. Of course, we'd had a rolling start. We didn't have a grid start. And Oscar got through. Oscar got through on lap one. There's a lot of things to sort of highlight here. Firstly, I guess if we're talking chronologically, the loss of the position on lap one and the battery issue that Lando faced. Now, I was looking into sort of post-race interviews and things like that, and as of our understanding and of Zach Brown sharing his thoughts, Lando did have a battery issue. It was kind of communicated maybe slightly differently during the race, where we thought perhaps Lando had used his battery too early, perhaps even behind the safety car. I don't think that's the case.
And it's whether the wording of Zach Brown means an issue or the issue was he used it, I guess.
He kind of said we need to look into it and we need to do homework and this, that and the other. So it's, of course, he's going to defend his guys, but it does lean more towards... Because Lando is a fantastic driver. He knows how to race, and I'm sure he knows when to use his battery. Perhaps unless he was in a different mode. I hope they will clarify it fully, but what I'm going to do is assume what Zach has said is the fact that Lando had an issue. And of course, that meant Oscar got a phenomenal run on Lando, who I think was a little bit tentative out of turn one. And that was essentially the race done. That was how it was decided.
Yeah, it certainly was. Yeah, the battery issue, we don't know as of yet how much that was driver or just an issue with the car. But even with that aside, I think firstly, I think we need to go even back before that. And I do think it's a questionable tactic, in my opinion, and I don't know if it's hindsight, but I'm sure we said it on the watch along actually, that to accelerate so early before that final corner, when of course you can't overtake, seemed very strange to kind of go there, because it just meant that everyone was still close. You'd think you'd boot the throttle at the exit of the corner, catch everyone by surprise there, because they like to leave it as late as possible. But for Lando to go there just kind of kept Oscar with him. And then Lando made a little mistake going out of turn one, of course, as well. So even without the battery, he was under without the battery issue, he was under a lot of pressure, because he got slightly, on the power, sliding a little bit, and it gave Oscar Piastri an amazing run up the hill. And I guess, credit to Oscar Piastri for taking that one moment, because of course it's crucial, and this is exactly what happened later on. and we said this during the race, that when you've got two drivers in the same team fighting for the victory and you're going to have a crossover, you want to be the one ahead because you get the preferential stop. And that's exactly what happened. Oscar knew, I need to get ahead because then I will be able to pit first.
And that he did. Question from P1 Patreon member Liek Rain. Do you think that the mistakes we saw from Lando today will cost him the championship, or are they just more highlighted? So let's kind of run through the mistakes, or some obviously I don't think were mistakes, and perhaps due to the team or things like that. So Lando, and I guess all of his ailments that he had today. So he had a slowish pit stop, 3.5 seconds, where I think he joked by Oscar in the cool-down room when he was watching this one back in slow-mo. And then, of course, through losing the lead at the start, he did have a lap later stop. And I think there's a question which we'll dive into maybe shortly about could they have double stacked rather than let Lando go for an extra lap. But either or, Lando didn't have the preferential treatment there because he was the second car on the road. Then the actual mistakes, of course, were the 2 turn 1 lockups and then the Podium mistake. I'm not really counting the last lockup, which was like a lap or two before the end because there was no real chance to catch him. But the other two, I think, cost him somewhere within the region of 2.5 to 3 seconds, which I think could have been an interesting factor had he not made those mistakes. But of course he did. The battery issue at the start, which we mentioned. But then on the flip side of that, and things that I think did help Lando, was the Hard's decision over the mediums. Now, whether that was the fact that the team were trying to not allow the two to fight on track and wanted to give them completely different strategies because they expected Oscar to pit again, probably at the time, or whether it was a case of, I don't know. That's the one that mainly, that's what I lean towards, is that the team were just trying to keep these two away from each other. Not that they have, bad blood or anything, but from a team's perspective, it makes the most sense. So that kind of gives you, I think, an overarching overview of what happened with Lando's race. And so then, do you think that the mistakes we saw from Lando today will cost him the championship? I'm obviously, with the battery issue, I am putting that towards being a car issue from what I have understood of Zak Brown's quote. Yes, Lando made a couple of mistakes today, but I think a lot of it was literally a byproduct from lap 1 and losing the lead. A lot of these things happened because of him losing the lead at the start, which, can you really blame him? It definitely affected him. Zak Brown said it himself. Lando lost the lead because of that battery issue. Without that, Lando keeps the lead, probably wins the race.
But he didn't, of course. I think the mistakes are costing him for sure. The thing with Lando this year, I think, he's shown that he's got the speed, but he seems to make more errors during kind of normal conditions, if you like. I know he's obviously chasing Piastri and pushing, and that's why he went off. But we've not tended to see that kind of from Piastri as much. So this is definitely Lando's Achilles heel, I think. This season is a few errors here and there costing him when he needs to catch up. Yeah, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt at the start. But then also, like I said, he did make a mistake into turn 1 as well, which has put Piastri on it. So we said this at Silverstone, because of course Piastri made the error at Silverstone, that mistakes are going to cost. Whichever McLaren driver doesn't end up winning the title, we will look back on moments. And at the moment, they're very, very close. Piastri's extended his lead. And at the end of the season, if Piastri wins the championship, we'll go, oh, God, if only Lando had done this, or if he hadn't have crashed at Canada or whatever. And then equally, if Lando wins the championship, we'll go, oh, if Oscar hadn't have made that error at Silverstone, because, these are going to be the crucial moments. And it will come down to mistakes. I think it's not just the mistakes from Lando that cost him the championship. It's both of them. And today, Piastri was the one that was faultless, and that's what won in the race.
It was. I think, yeah, of course, he did make those mistakes. The biggest mistake for me, and it's to touch upon what you had said, Tommy, which I hadn't really commented on, was the the start of the race, was the decision to accelerate so early. I think that you put Max Verstappen in that situation, I can see exactly what he does, where he bolts off of the final chicane.
Corner, yeah.
He will literally take a really wide line around the second part of the final chicane, and he will just bolt because you can't follow his line.
Yeah.
You can't get too close. And then he's got 5-6 tenths in the bag, and he's absolutely fine. And even with Norris's issues, he probably could have kept the lead. So that, I think, was the biggest error. Of course, yeah, the other small errors of him costing 2.5-3 seconds were big. It's hard to... You can't really like for like Norris versus Piastri in terms of the pace today, just purely because Norris was on the hard tyres, who I think actually drove really well in terms of his pace, considering the Pirelli graphic was saying that the hard tyres compared to the softs were nearly 2 seconds a lap slower and the mediums weren't much of a step down. But then you've got Piastri on the other side of that trying to manage the mediums to the end. So it's very difficult to compare the two as to know which was the better strategy, but I'm leaning more towards the hards.
That was such an interesting moment of the race, I think, as well, because you had, initially, you had Lando, and we can talk about this now because we actually, I think, disagreed on the watch long about it, of should McLaren have just double stacked them, because I don't think they'd have lost that much time personally, with Lando being, what was he, a second and a half, pit stops take 2.5 seconds. You don't want to do an extra lap at the longest track on the calendar when clearly Lewis Hamilton on those dries showed that that's the way to go. But it's very interesting that when we got to that second lap, the initial reaction was, what are McLaren doing? Why have they put him on hards? That's silly. And then actually it ended up completely flipping. And then this is where you get, the fans that go, oh, they're favouring Lando, or, oh, they've screwed Lando. And I think it's very interesting to watch a different team split something with their cars. And this is going to be fascinating going into the season later on now, where two sides of the garages will do something different because they're competitors. They're not teammates. They are teammates, but they're not playing friendly anymore. It's two cars and two teams within a team that want to win the championship.
For sure. I think, going back to your double stacking point, I think the reason why I disagreed was, one, a double stack is not easy to do. It's not just to click your fingers and you'll bash out 2.5 second pit stops without an element of risk. And also as well, like the track wasn't bone dry. Don't get me wrong, Hamilton was flying out there. And I guess perhaps from a McLaren standpoint, it's just safeguarding ever so slightly there of, okay, we'll just do another lap with Lando. The track will be slightly drier. We're not going to lose. In terms of the battle between the two of them, I can see the argument for double stacking as well. But I guess against that, the worst case scenario is probably, they bodged the pit stop and then you have Leclerc, who, to be fair, was 8 seconds back. One or the other, it was very much both viable, I think, in my opinion. It wasn't like an absolute stone cold, you need to double stack, what the hell are you doing? It's not like an Oscar Piastri at Silverstone like we saw, which was a disaster from McLaren. I don't think it was as bad as that. I think they could have saved maybe 2-3 seconds with a good couple of pit stops for the double stack.
That's Piastri in 2024 for context, not this year.
Yes, yeah, last year, which I'm sure a lot of Piastri fans will remember and not want to remember, to be honest with you. Lou_F1, should have McLaren kept both drivers on the same strategy? They gave Lando a good chance with that strategy. They don't need to, and I think it comes back to your point, Tommy, of the constructors is wrapped up. And there's kind of this inter-team battle now where both race engineers want, of course, their driver to do the best they possibly can in every race and to win the championship. And it did feel like a very last-minute call as well, because they went over the team radio to Lando and said, do you want the hards? Yes or no? Like, we need to make a decision right now. And Lando was like, yes. And it was like a snap decision. Lando came into the pits and went on the hards. I'm not completely against McLaren doing this from a fan perspective as well. I like the fact that it was a difference in strategy. Had they both been on the mediums, it's game over. It's GG's. Piastri would have won that without any element of intrigue.
Yeah.
But from a McLaren point of view, perhaps they felt, and maybe they didn't have time to do this, but I'm thinking from like an emotional level, they felt a little bit sorry for how Lando was kind of screwed in that whole situation and gave him an opportunity. And it's a really fascinating...
They had an extra lap to think about it as well, of course.
They did, yeah.
Because that and it is fascinating because no doubt fans will jump on the fact that, they're giving their lead driver the better strategy and all things like that, but they didn't know that at the time, of course. Yeah. You had no idea what was going to happen.
Lead driver being who, just for context?
For Lando. Like, people obviously seem to think that Lando's favoured by McLaren. Favoured by McLaren, and they put him on hards because they knew he'd catch up Oscar.
May I add, please, nobody else went on the hard tyres. That was not an obvious strategy by any stretch.
I think that, for me, that call was because they knew that Lando's finishing second regardless. And this is what McLaren can do now, and it's going to be fascinating as the season goes on that you have this garage split now where the McLaren is light years ahead. They know that they're going to finish 1-2 pretty much every race if nothing goes wrong, and they or Max Verstappen gets in the way every 5 rounds. But the fact is, these two drivers can now try and risk things, do things a little bit different. And that's going to be really interesting going forward because you're going to hear I can already see them, on the radio, just not even referring to the teammates by name anymore because that is the mentality you have to have.
The other car, don't they?
Yeah, the other car. Yeah, you're going to have to sort of get that in your head now. And this. We've said it so many times. This could be. I hope it's not for both of their sakes because they're both great drivers, but you never know with Formula One, and we're having a regulation change coming up. This could be the best opportunity these two will ever get to win a world championship. And at this moment in time, it is a 50-50 chance pretty much because this also screams to me that McLaren know that this is it now. It's between us two. We can take risks. We can go for it. And that's quite an exciting thing to look forward to. And I didn't think I'd use the word exciting in this Belgian Grand Prix review, but there we go.
Yeah, you said exciting, but it's for future things.
For future things,
not actually what happened in around Spa. Okay, cool. So that is McLaren kind of wrapped up for now. Tommy, let's go to your most memorable moment.
My most memorable and depressing moment was the rain delay. And, well, what a delay it was. I understand that they need to prioritize safety. We had an awful crash here in F2 a few years ago, losing the life of Hubert. And it's a really, really dangerous circuit. And you have to remember that visibility is everything. It's not just the rain, it's the visibility and people not being able to see through a very scary corner in Eau Rouge and Raidillon where they're going flat out. If a car goes off, it's very dangerous. So I get that. But the frustration for me, I was kind of defending the decision at the start, really, to basically say, look, delay it. Okay, I understand. They're very unfortunate. They're never going to move the start time, but it's always very frustrating when you see the perfect conditions.
Sometimes they do.
Move the start time forward. Yeah, they said this after Spa 2021 that they could do that because I'm sure as a fan, you're probably very frustrated watching a Formula 2 race that goes ahead and is perfect. Then you watch the driver's parade in dry conditions, everything, and then as soon as the Formula 1 starts, chucks it down with rain and we're not getting any action. So that is really frustrating. But what annoys me the most is when you can see the rain stopped and then we have to have we'll get the safety car out and the safety car drives around for a while. And then it's really, medical car, and then it gets drier and drier, and then the drivers are still, having a cup of tea, and the camera's just showing them all at the back of the garages, and then we go, okay, 20 minutes, yeah, we'll think about starting. Okay, 20 minutes, and then there's a 20-minute countdown, and you think we could have Formula 1 cars out there drying the track right now. There needs to be some kind of preparation of the rain is drizzling and about to stop now. We can see on the radar no more rain is coming. Let's get them in the car ready to go. You're just wasting 20 minutes of time there, if not arguably more. Annoying.
Oh, we love a Tommy rant. Wow, we can see the steam coming out of his ears. I was of a similar opinion when we were doing our watch along. That was the most frustrating part, was the clunky procedures that we have in Formula One, where it isn't a case of preparing for when the rain's stopping. It's the rain has stopped. Let's press the big red button that now allows everybody to go do what they need to do to prepare to start the race. Like 15-minute countdown here and there. And, I get putting out the medical car, checking the track conditions, cool, whatever, like it, fine. But I just don't really understand it. It does just feel like a very procedural thing that they're just set in their ways, and they've done it for many, many years, and that's just the way they'll do it. But it's 2025. We've got enough technology to know roughly when sort of rain clouds will be coming in, when it will stop, when the sun will come out. I know Spa is probably the most difficult place of all, but there's
a great point. They should be more
prepared
to know because they have all this technology. So
exactly.
when the weather's coming. And it did. They knew that this is the most frustrating thing, is going, there's going to be rain at 3 o'clock, and boy, at 3 o'clock, it absolutely choked it down. So do something.
Yes, I do still feel some sympathy for the race director because of what you said around Spa being a very dangerous track, and also the visibility I think here it just hangs in the air. Like even after all of the waiting we did and the complaining and the sun that we saw, and some parts of the track were reasonably dry, there were parts of the track where we rode on board with signs and things like that, and we saw that the visibility is still pretty poor. Like even then. So I still think that the best drivers in the world, we have incredible safety parameters in place now, that they should have gone racing slightly earlier. But I also do understand to a degree why they take the precaution that they do, because in the moment we get frustrated. Like in the moment we're like, just go racing. And there are some archaic procedures that need slightly tightening up, I think, to take advantage of weather conditions. But Spa is such a unique track. It's such a difficult one to get right when it's been raining.
Yeah, and this unfortunately keeps happening, but that's the problem. They're not learning. They should learn about these decisions and do something, because it keeps happening again, and it will happen again. We'll see it again at other tracks where it just gets delayed too long.
Tiago_Mech asks, why are the FIA such cowards towards wet conditions? Such a waste and such a boring race after the dries came on. They are the best drivers in the world. Let them struggle a bit in the wet. I do agree that they could have been in slightly more not treacherous, but just slightly more difficult conditions than what they were in. Don't get me wrong. The visibility is something that we can only judge to a degree from being at home in the comfort of our own lounges or wherever we are watching on television. Coward is harsh. I think that's going a step too far to call the FIA and race control cowards. But I think there needs to be more discussion about how they improve the procedure in these types of races, because we're going to have them in the future. And I feel like this is not the first, not the second, not the third, not the fifth time we have discussed just how slow the procedure is when it comes to this sort of stuff.
And that is the most frustrating thing. It may sound a bit cliche and it's always the same rant, but you understand why, that the fans, that these Formula One drivers are meant to be the best drivers in the world. That's what is pushed on the tag of Formula One again and again and again. These are the best drivers in the world. And then you watch a Formula 2 race where they're in worse conditions. They're meant to be the worst drivers that aren't ready for Formula One yet, and they're the ones going out doing a race that didn't get delayed, didn't get stopped. There were no safety cars. They just, in terms of safety cars, because of the weather, they just went out and did the race in treacherous conditions. And when Formula One comes about, I totally understand why fans get annoyed that everyone's sat in the pit lane with their brollies and then they don't start the race until there's only like 3 laps of wet running and then they're all on the dries. It's annoying as hell.
What lap was it that they moved to the dries?
10, 9, 10, something like that.
So lap 12, Hamilton came into the pits.
Yeah.
To change over to the dries, which, roughly 25 minutes into the race. Interesting stuff. Next question from 1337 PLMNO. Why are they doing 4 laps behind the safety car on a drying track in order to do a rolling start instead of 1 and a standing start? Yeah, it's frustrating, isn't it? I think that this is also something that feels very archaic in the procedures that we do and the health and safety, whatever the FIA race control want to call it. Like, yes, they've waited for the track to be ready and then gone, we'll do a rolling start. No, you either wait for the track to be as dry as it is and we get a standing start, which is probably, if not definitely, the best part of a Formula One race is the standing start and the excitement of lap one, that when the 5 lights go out. So I agree that it needed to be slightly more difficult conditions and a rolling start, or what we had and a standing start.
Yeah, absolutely. You either, if you're waiting that long, you might as well have a standing start. And I can already hear people yelling at the screen, because of course it doesn't matter now because he lost the lead anyway. But obviously what could have been a big controversy had he had gone on and won the race and something we'd have talked about was the fact that Lando Norris was on the radio going, well, actually my side of the grid and I'm on pole position is wet, so I'm going to have a really bad start here if we do a standing start. And then they chose to do a rolling start. So that's one of those,
whether
another
that was
situation.
The reason that they did it?
No, I'm not saying it's the reason, but obviously they literally did do that. So like, I'm not saying it's because they did, and some people, of course, will argue, oh, British bias, of course they did. But this is what happened. But that shouldn't factor in and into it anyway. And yeah, you always want to see a standing start in Formula One. I think that's the frustrating thing for fans. That is the most exciting part of a Grand Prix, is a standing start. And I thought there were procedures in place and things to make sure that they kind of did that as much as possible now. But they chose to do a rolling start, of course. And that other than obviously Piastri making the move, made it very difficult for people to pass and things, because that's the big opportunity, isn't it, in those conditions?
Yeah, I do wonder, and obviously this is speculative, whether the race control did decide to do a rolling start because of the fact it was maybe seen as an unfair advantage for the drivers that are on the racing line compared to pole sitter. That it wouldn't have been no. So that's what I'm saying. So it would have been an unfair advantage for the ones not on pole, so second,
exactly,
and all the even numbers, which I don't agree with personally. I'm like, how do you ever measure fair and unfair? In dry conditions, the drivers on the pole, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, etc., have grip because it's usually on the racing line. So, like, if they're doing it because it's slightly more wet on one side than other, I would say, that's just luck of the draw. You put the standing start first over, actually there's 3 millilitres more on poles than there is from second. You think of the amount of standing starts we've had in the past in Formula One, and I'm looking back towards the glorious, noughties and whatever, where it's much wetter than that, and we've had standing starts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so very odd that they didn't choose to do it, because that's the frustrating thing for fans, was that you look at it and go, well, they started the F2 in these conditions, and it didn't look that bad, and they were running in these conditions in F2, and that shouldn't be the case.
Of course, F2 do go slightly slower than Formula One cars, which maybe is another factor. But we move on to the next question. People on Patreon member Anastasia W. What's the real solution to finding the balance between safety and racing in the wet? We keep having the same conversation, but nothing changes. Look, it's 2025. Why are we still, to this day, relying on tractors and hair dryers or whatever we're doing? How do we not have a more modern solution to drying a track out? I really don't understand it. Now, I don't know what that technology would be, but there are much cleverer people out there. And I've seen people in our watch-along chat saying we literally have the cleverest engineers in the world working in Formula One. How are we still relying on farming machinery to go and sort the track out? It's so true.
It is so true. Yeah, this is the frustrating thing that we've said so many times, is they can't seem to find a solution, the biggest brains in the sport and everything, and we're still in this situation, and we've had races like this for years and years and years now, where it's just robbing the fans of entertainment and people that pay their money to, there's plenty of talk of Pirelli should bring a wet tyre, but in this case it's the visibility and things and trying to clear the water, and it's just not good enough to have this situation. And the problem is, they know that we're probably not going to have a situation like this again for a while, so they kind of get away with it because we have a race, okay, whatever, we talk about the race, and then there'll be a summer break, we'll have forgotten about it, and then maybe at some point later in the season it will happen again, and we'll go, what can they do? What can they do? And they just don't seem to do anything. They try all these things about getting rid of the spray. Maybe it's better when we get a change of regulations and it's not so much about the floor. Who knows? But yeah, it's a real frustrating thing of modern Formula One that, we're not NASCAR. We should be able to race in wet conditions. It's not an oval.
Certainly isn't, Tommy. That's a very good point. Perhaps the new cars in 2026 will be better and less
for many
sprayy.
Reasons better. Please.
Yeah, fingers crossed, please. Next question from P1 Pitch. Remember, Edith is my middle name. Is Leclerc's drive going unnoticed? Holding Verstappen at bay for that long surely has to be commended. Edith, your £5.
I was going to say, how much have you paid Matt here, Edith?
Yeah, no, appreciate that. I think, I don't know if it's going unnoticed as such. I mean, the race has only just happened, but I will commend Leclerc for a brilliant P3. I thought, especially Verstappen in the wet, and he's right behind you. I thought Leclerc was going to lose the position to Max every day of the week. I'd given up. I'd given up hope. My delusion levels are waning right now. But he held on. Verstappen's tyres then started to cook a little bit, I think, towards the end of that intermediate stint. And then in the dry, Leclerc was great. Like, he was as good as Max in terms of the pace. There were times, I think, especially at the end of the race, where Max was mounting an assault. But Leclerc held him at bay, and I think it was a brilliant drive. That's as much as he could have done today in a Ferrari which is not known for being particularly good in the wet. And to hold on, and I know, Tommy, you on the watch along, get out of the way, Charles. Don't know why you're racing Max, because, he's going to be going after the McLarens. And I was like, no, Charles, he's going to stay there. And he did. And it was absolutely worth the fight. Because as much as Charles looked like in the wet, especially towards the end of that stint, like he was the slowest man on track, he was still faster than everybody else behind him. It's just that the McLarens were in a different league. But no, I'm glad he held on, because Leclerc, it was a very, very good drive.
Yes, it certainly was. Leclerc got everything out of that car this race to be able to, much of it was done in qualifying to be ahead of Max, because it was incredibly hard to overtake. But it's not to take away from Leclerc how he drove, because I think it's a lesson to many drivers, and you see this up and down the grid and in many other motorsport series, that a lot of drivers, and it's becoming more and more common, and maybe it's the engineer's influence, and this does sound a bit old man yells at cloud, but I like drivers...
A rainy cloud?
A rainy cloud, yeah. I like drivers that will defend and they don't think about delta time. And Leclerc quite easily could have gone, I'm losing too much time here, I'll let Max go and I'll finish about fourth. And he's been rewarded by hanging on here, giving it everything, driving in those wet conditions when, it's hard to pass, but he's still done a great job to keep Max behind. And then when it gets to dry, it's even more weirdly difficult to overtake. And he had the pace to be able to pull away and finish third on the podium. So in a weird way, I'm glad that that's been rewarded, because I don't like seeing drivers just go, oh, I'm losing too much time here. It's better for my race if I just let people go and then think about my delta time and I'm losing time because I'm battling and things like that. So yeah, Leclerc did a fantastic job, and very rare to see Ferrari, because we say this so many times, get a good result in these kind of conditions, because normally the car's not too suited for it. Of course, we saw Lewis Hamilton, who would have been praying for those conditions, because we know how good he is, and he showed that as well.
He certainly did. Back to the delta time point, I think that, I completely agree that it's great to see when drivers do throw that out the window. I think in Charles' case, this one, as much as I love to commend him for literally everything he does, there was no delta time thoughts. I don't think, just purely going back to my point of the fact that he was the fourth fastest car, if you're counting Max and then the two McLarens, because everyone else wasn't catching him. It's not like he was creating a Leclerc train because he was fighting Max. Despite fighting Max, he was still quicker than Russell, Albon and everyone else behind. But yeah, Charles is a beautiful man, and I will completely agree with that. Next question, Mr. Bear 15. How in the world did Hamilton go from P18 to P7 but still remain in the same position after that?
Because Spa sucks in the dry.
Yeah, Hamilton did a fantastic job with the strategy. I think a lot of experience came there. Hulkenberg, I think, came in on the same lap as well and was thrust up the order initially until deciding to do one of the strangest strategy calls I think I've ever seen for Hulk. Maybe just fully securing the flop that I had predicted for him. But back to Hamilton, yeah, it was a brilliant choice to go there. You know, he was setting purple sectors that lap, which then brought everybody else into the pits. But even that one lap around such a long lap like Spa, he was able to really take advantage and get all the way up to, as you say, P7, Mr. Bear 15. So after that, Spa happened, where nobody can overtake. Albon was pretty fast in the straight line, I think, as well, and he was able to hold him. And it's annoying because, you know, Hamilton looked really quick, but could do nothing about it. So then just decided, hey, I'm just going to chill here until an opportunity arises. He got close to Albon. He was within half a second in DRS, but still Spa.
It was a weird situation where it kind of felt like a throwback to old school Formula One, where it's impossible to overtake in the dry, and in the wet is your actually opportunity, because in recent years, normally the wet conditions are where you can't overtake because you don't want to go offline and things like that. But it just allowed Hamilton to be able to basically make moves in non-DRS zones and make moves into the bus stop and things like that, which is what I personally love seeing rather than DRS passes and stuff. So he made all his moves then, and then unfortunately when it got to the dry conditions, we had exactly the same situation that we saw in the sprint race of just, it's too hard to pass. And that's really, really depressing, because my word, was the race. Like watching Sonoda and Behrman, I think it was, behind Gasly for just lap after lap after lap after lap. And as much as DRS is like lauded on certain other tracks, it's awful. It's actually awful at kind of your Spas and things, because the trains are just probably the most frustrating thing to watch as a Formula One fan, to just watch lap after lap of people that can do nothing, because you have the car behind that has DRS, so then they can't be overtaken either, and you just have this knock-on effect, and it's just dreadful.
It is dreadful. That is a great word for it. Question, and this is about the circuits, from P1 Patreon member Cody. When is the F1 community going to stop being nostalgic about Spa and admit that it's just not suitable for modern Formula One? We wouldn't lose much entertainment-wise from it dropping off the calendar. I think the reason why a lot of Formula One fans that have been watching for quite a long time in their lives have this nostalgia is because Spa is a phenomenal circuit. But also, I don't know whether this question is going to be particularly relevant with the fact that we do have new cars coming next year, where I'm hoping slipstream will be more effective even at low downforce tracks, and overtaking will be more possible. Who knows? That is just a dreamland right now. But, we're coming to a point now where it's not the circuit. The circuit is phenomenal. It's amazing to watch. I love it. A lot of people love it. It's the cars. The cars are the problem. The cars are ruining iconic circuits, not the other way around. The circuit's not changed. Spa has not changed. It's still awesome. But sadly, we rely on the cars to do things with each other. That sounds sus. and they haven't been, because they can't get anywhere near each other.
No, there's too many circuits on the calendar that we're having this conversation about. If this was one circuit a year where you can't overtake, you'd go, actually, Spa is terrible and needs to be got. But this is happening up and down the Formula One calendar. I think it was it after Japan we had this conversation where we went through the entire calendar, and minus like Vegas, Austria, and a few others, there weren't really many that are known for overtaking now, because the cars are just...
Brazil, can't believe it.
Yeah, sorry, Brazil, of course.
The GOAT.
The GOAT, and weirdly one of the only old school circuits, and Silverstone, that delivers, but there really aren't many, and it's unfortunate that these tracks are just getting lost, and we are going to see Spa drop off the calendar and rotate, if you like, every other year. And maybe that's that will help us maybe appreciate it more rather than just getting to the end of every single season going, well, that was every race there going, oh, what can they do?
Maybe, I'm literally just spitballing here and it could be a terrible suggestion, but one of the problems for the likes of Spa, for the likes of Monza, is low downforce cars. So could Formula One, could the FIA almost
force
kind of
them
have
to
like
use
a
massive
minimum
wings,
rear wing angle, like something that will force slipstream, force the DRS to be more powerful than it is, because we saw that a little bit, didn't we? At one point in the race, drivers were able to overtake each other, and I was like, oh, hold on a second. Even with DRS, it's like, they've got bigger wings on. It's looking slightly more promising, but the problem is they then spread out and then they couldn't get close to each other again. But I do wonder if there are things like that can be put in place which...
Well, the slipstream used to be so
fits.
good, didn't they, in the previous cars, and that's why you had these ridiculous situations like Monza, where you had what they do in Formula 3, where they're all trying to get a slipstream from each other.
Exactly.
Because the slipstream was so good, but unfortunately now they're not as good. That's why Baku was so good in that 2017, 2018 era, because you had massive wings, and then the DRS is so powerful and you get a massive slipstream, whereas now, you're finding it a lot more difficult. So...
Okay, big wangs. We've fixed it. We've fixed Formula One.
Yeah, none of these skinny... You basically ban skinny wings. You're not allowed to change.
Skinny wings are done. Yeah. Done now. You need a shovel on the back of your car or nothing else. Okay, let's head to biggest winner, driver or team. I mean, McLaren have done rather well, haven't they? But, this is to be expected from them. Albon's done a brilliant job in P6. He had a poor sprint and then... of course, qualified incredibly well in P5, and then to still finish ahead of a Ferrari that Hamilton had come through the field pretty early on is no mean feat. So I'm going to go with Albon. Yeah,
Albon's a great shout because Williams just haven't seemed to have scored big points in a long time. Sainz had the dream sprint and then it flipped the other way. Piastri is a good shout as well, just from the fact that he managed to deliver to get a healthy-ish lead going into Hungary, and then if he can extend it again, he'll be looking nice into the summer break. But just to be different, I go Piastri because I think it was
Bortoletto, little P9 from him.
It was very impressive from Bortoletto, of course. We'll talk about his teammate later.
That's a Podium car these days. So.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So it's actually an underperformance. Okay, moving to biggest loser. Hadjar had one of the worst races definitely the worst race of his Formula One career. We're not including Australia, that technically wasn't really a race because crashed out before the start of it. But Hadjar, could it have gone any worse? Could it have gone any worse for him? 20th and just miles off the back of anyone. I think the strategy went terrible. I don't really know what happened with Hadjar's race, but all I noted is that he was a million miles behind.
This one is the easiest one in the world, and it hurts me to say it, but it's Kimi Antonelli. The whole weekend has been absolutely appalling. To have two mistakes in both qualifying sessions to finish 16th. He was on the verge of tears. Doesn't matter anymore, does it?
Not that it matters anyway.
No, true. But on the verge of tears. He needs to have a good Hungarian Grand Prix to go into the summer break with a bit more of a positive mindset, because it really does feel like he's spiraling at the moment.
Bless him. Yeah, it's a very fair shout. Okay, let's have a look back at our predictions, shall we, that we made on Wednesday to see how we did. It is currently 31-29 to Tommy, but I am mounting a comeback. People thought it was over a few races ago, but now we are 2 points apart. A good surprise. Tommy went for...
I went for Pierre Gasly.
The reason why I did that was because it says TM. It's because usually you go first.
So that's still a hangover from the
I
just
sheet. Forgot what happens. Yeah, it's because usually we're like, oh, you go first.
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter really.
All right, fine. I went for Williams for a good surprise, and sadly, one of them did well, and the other one did not in both sprint and main race. So that's fun.
Well, you're not going to take it. I can't believe I'm actually arguing a point for you here.
Wait, no, hold on. Where did Sainz finish in the sprint?
Sainz got a great result in the sprint, did he not?
Where did he finish in the sprint, though? Let me just... Hold on. Let me fight this.
Sainz got a 6th in the sprint.
All right. Good surprise.
2
locked
top
in. Williams
6s
scoring.
in both races for both drivers.
That's actually crazy.
I can't believe I'm
crazy.
arguing a point for you.
No, it slipped my mind. I knew that Sainz had a good sprint. Didn't realise it was a P6. So we will lock that in. Tommy, it's been a very busy day today. So thank you for fighting my corner. That's 2 points. 2 points. I forgot. I thought it was 1. It's 2 points because of the team. You shouldn't have said anything.
No,
you now hate me. Yes.
Maybe I'm just hoping you're going to be nice here. Pierre Gasly, P10, rare points.
Didn't start the sprint.
No, but Alpine. I mean, how many points have Alpine got this year? They're basically like.
How many points have they got? Talk to me. They have a whopping 20 points.
I mean, he's the worst. They're the worst car on the grid now, aren't they? And Gasly's strung that.
Aston Martin are the worst team on the grid this weekend.
It's a 1 pointer.
Am I going to be nice for 10th?
It's a 10th.
Yeah, I mean, he had a terrible car and he managed to just form a Gasly train and hold on.
In a race where everyone's finished as well, no retirements.
I'll let you have it because I nearly forgot my one. So there you go. A big flop. I went for Nico Hülkenberg. Absolutely. Yeah, lock it in. That's done.
Yeah, I can't believe it. We haven't talked about this. What a ridiculous decision to just throw away a point for no reason.
In a point paying position in P10, wasn't he, behind his teammate Bortoleto? And then they just decided to pit him with like 11 laps to go. Now, I haven't seen anything to suggest that he had a tyre failure, but they just went on Spa you can overtake, right? Did they just forget?
I could rant about this all day. I think this screams to me like engineers looking at delta times and things rather than actually what's happening on track. Because how many times have we seen this situation where we go, oh, they're going to hit a cliff? That hasn't happened since like 2012. And this imaginary cliff that they keep going on about, they mentioned it, Charles Leclerc when he brilliantly won in Monza. George Russell last year, he got disqualified, obviously, but he won it on track. And everyone's waiting for the tyres to just give up. They just don't anymore. So why you'd sacrifice track position when you've basically seen a Gasly train? Why you'd want to be behind that at any point is absolutely mind-blowing.
So I found what Hülkenberg was saying after the race to counter your point. He said that they'd made a second stop with around 11 laps to go. His front tyres was dropping off significantly and was having front locking and understeer. He said that staying out wasn't really an option, especially with our higher downforce setup compared to Pierre Gasly behind, who was running lower downforce. We therefore opted for the stop and tried to fight back, but unfortunately it didn't quite work out.
Still the wrong choice.
Yeah, just Tommy's like, just let the tyre just fall off before you come in.
Well, you might as well, right?
10th place. Like,
why would you not? If you're in a points, like you don't get anything.
Yeah, I think with 11 laps to go, it was worth the try.
Yeah, definitely.
They decided against it, so there you go.
They sure did. Anyway, big flop. I went for Sauber, and of course, Bortoleto became the GOAT.
Yeah. That's mental, isn't it? Because I think I saw a comment on the predictions that was like, Matt didn't realise that Tommy's gone for Sauber, which basically means if Nico is a flop, then Sauber will be a flop as well, because Bortoleto's not going to do anything special. Boom, Bortoleto.
And Bortoleto had a fantastic weekend. We'll mention the driver ratings, but really good in qualifying. Got some points as well. So, but no. The fact that even Nico Hülkenberg managed to drop out of the points to get you a big flop point as well is outrageous.
Let's go to Sprint Pole, where I went for Lando Norris. Incorrect.
And I went for Max Verstappen. Incorrect.
Sprint winner, I went for Lando Norris. Incorrect.
And I went for Oscar Piastri. I said that basically Verstappen would get pole position and then not win the sprint. And the exact opposite happened. Wheel knowledge.
Oh, dearie me. And speaking of wheel knowledge, pole position, I went for Charles Leclerc.
Oh, dear. And I went for Max Verstappen. No,
well, we really did well on that one. What about our top three? In third position, I went for Charles Leclerc.
That's so annoying because I went for Max, and that battle, we said this in the watch along, there was not only our favourite drivers battling out, but also a prediction point. So made it extra spicy.
Yeah, that was tense. That was the only tense point of the entire Grand Prix was mine and your prediction fighting it out. In second place, I went for Max Verstappen, which was incorrect.
I went for Lando Norris.
And then beautifully, the way that I have changed it up, because you were, of course, going to go for Oscar Piastri, weren't you? But instead, I have locked it in first and foremost, and it's Oscar Piastri right there and then for me. Was that how it worked? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah,
what
you stole my. Yeah, you did. You stole my prediction for going for Piastri, even though you were going to go for Norris, just to block me. Which is it's basically been the double block, because not only have you blocked me, you've also got it then correct. Which is really, really irritating.
That's a W right there.
So that is a W. Oh,
it's a serious W.
God.
So I went for Oscar Piastri and you went for George Russell. Don't ruin it yet. Don't ruin it. As my sister just decides to leave the room as I'm mid-podcast recording. That's great. Have a great time, Georgina. Take care. All right, bye. Okay. One crazy prediction.
Oh my God.
I went for Sonoda makes Q3.
Another
one. Another one.
Cooking. I'm fading.
And
I'm
yours
fading.
was?
Mine was Franco Colapinto first points. Dreadful.
Yeah, not ideal. Patreon prediction, I went for You Want to Have the Drink, which was both Ferraris finishing the top 5 for both sprint and main race, and sadly that did not happen.
Nope, and I went for Zingies, which was 3 different constructors on the podiums. I obviously forgot McLaren existed, and
you did.
Yeah, not going to happen.
You did.
So you got 1, 2,
I was 2
3,
behind.
4, 5, and I got 2. Oh my word, you got 5 points. So
I'm
it's
3 ahead.
34.
He's so back.
Wait, 34. No,
34?
2 ahead.
No, I'm 34. No, I'm 34.
Yeah, no, 34, 32 to you, yeah.
Did you...
I got 2 points.
How many points did you score? 3. You scored 2. I scored 5.
What was it before?
It was 31-29.
To me, so I get 2 points. So
yeah, you get 33 for
33 for me. And you scored...
Why'd you keep... 5.
You scored 5.
I'm 1 ahead.
So you're 1 ahead.
Oh my God, my maths are really struggling here.
It's because it says to me, yeah. So 33
reading it in the sheet is throwing me off. Okay, so I'm 1 ahead.
34. Oh, you've taken the lead.
Oh my God, I've taken the lead. That is unbelievable.
This
is why Lando Norris can still win the World Championship, because everyone wrote me off just like they did Lando. And here we are. We're back. We're so back, baby. Okay, speaking of being so back, will the Gallaghers be so back? Let's see. Tommy's just done a massive inhale. So the family top 3, it's currently 7-4 to the boring Bellinghams. In third position, my dad went for George Russell. Cheers, mate. Cheers, Dad. Appreciate that one.
Nope. My dad went for Antonelli. Very much wrong.
I think that's actually a negative point. I'm not going to lie to you. That was so wrong. In second place, my dad went for Piastri.
Wrong. And my dad went for Verstappen.
Which was also wrong. And in first place, obviously, my dad's got it wrong. He went for Norris. So thanks, Dad. 0 points for you. Cheers.
And my dad went for Oscar Piastri. So the Bellinghams have extended their leads. And
oh my God, you've got a whole race victory ahead of me now.
Yeah.
Like, even if I get 3.
Grace for Hungary it is. Although Grace actually is getting wheel knowledge now. She knows drivers' names, so maybe I just pray that she says Max Verstappen and
Gasly
George Russell and stuff.
To be fair, she will say Max Verstappen and she will say Pierre Gasly. So who that third driver will be, who knows?
George Russell, she knows the name of, and that's about it.
Yeah?
So
okay.
it might be those 3. We'll find out.
Right. That is the main race podcast all done and dusted. Remember, if you appear on Patreon, we're going to continue for some extra chat right now. Patreon.com/MattP1Tommy. But apart from that, Tommy, all we have left to do is to get your final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I'm glad we're going to a race we can overtake. Oh, wait, it's Hungary. Yeah, see you next
probably
week.
Get more overtakes than what we
yeah,
saw.
we probably will actually. Fingers crossed.
Have a wing on them, so slipstream will work. Maybe. Fingers crossed. We'll see. Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in, as always, for our watch-alongs. Remember to go buy some P1 live show tickets if you haven't already, and we'll be continuing the chat with patrons. But apart from that, take care. See you soon. Adios. Love you lots.
Goodbye.
Bye!